all worldly people have an agenda. Now, what do I mean with an agenda? I don't mean that every human being they encounter, they want something from them. No, that's not what I mean. With an agenda, I mean a set of expectations that they're holding on to. Because what is an agenda? An agenda is an expectation that you want to be met. And now you take actions to secure the outcome you're holding on to. That is what an agenda is. So, all worldly people have an agenda. Now, again, that does not mean that every time they say hi to you or they're kind to you, that they are doing that to get something from you. No, it can be that a worldly individual helps you out and they don't expect anything from you in return. That can happen. Okay? That's an ability that they have. They don't always cling on to you expecting something from you. No, I'm not talking about that. People that are like that, they have mental health issues. So I'm not talking about this clinging onto demanding things from people. I'm not talking about manipulation here. I'm talking about worldly people. Their mindset is a black and white thinking, and because they have a black and white thinking, they're always clinging onto an agenda. Again, they can be kind towards you. It doesn't mean that they are exploiting you or they're using you. It's just that the way they process reality is based on a set of expectations that they're clinging onto. Now, of course, there are worldly people that have deep mental health issues and therefore they want to control others. That exists. You also have narcissists who are wicked. And with them it's obvious that they have an agenda, but it's different. The narcissist, or I can say the reprobate, is only interested in their own agenda. The narcissist or reprobate only sees their own agenda. A common worldly individual has his or her agenda, but they at least have the natural flexibility to realize, hold on a minute, what I want may not be that relevant, or what I want may not be that wise. A narcissist or reprobate only sees their own agenda. Okay? Now, believers that are born again shouldn't have an agenda because we walk by faith. We're doing the will of the Heavenly Father. So, with believers, you shouldn't have to watch out for their agenda because they're safe. Unfortunately, there are believers who are still not renewed in their mind, so they still carry a worldly agenda with them. That's why they need to be delivered. But believers ought to be renewed in their mind so that they are not burdened by agenda, but they are free in Christ. Because only in Christ there is real freedom. So realize this. Unless someone is born again and renewed in their mind, they carry an agenda. Again, that doesn't mean that anytime they are kind or they do the right thing, they want something in return from other people. The agenda can also be that they are fatalistic, that they have this nihilistic, suicidal thinking in which they don't expect anything good from life. You may think, shit, how can that be an agenda when you don't expect anything good from life? It's an agenda because you're clinging onto an negative expectation that you can't account for. Because there are good things happening in life. So for you to say that there aren't any good things happening in life, that means you're clinging onto an expectation that there is no good. And because you're clinging onto the expectation, you now unconsciously guard yourself from anything that blocks or hinders that agenda. It can also be that a worldly individual doesn't want to face any difficulty. So they are in denial. That's also an agenda. Now, someone can have an agenda, but just because they have an agenda doesn't mean that they will be abusive towards others. Someone may believe that life has nothing good to offer, but they remain kind and honorable towards others, despite that they're self-destructive. Someone else may be, I would say, in denial because they don't want to face any difficulties, and now they project their frustration onto others and they dump it on others. They also have an agenda, but these ones are abusive and they assault others. So with agenda, again, I repeat, is a set of expectations they're clinging onto. Yes, I said clinging. They're clinging onto those expectations. Why is it important to understand this? It's important to understand this because anyone out there, believer or unbeliever, unfortunately they're also believers with an agenda. We don't need an agenda because we have the will of God. How? I'm saying, why would you need an agenda if you know God's will? If you don't know God's will because you're not walking by faith, then you need an agenda. That's the only thing you're left with. So understand that when someone has an agenda, they carry a weight with them. They don't have to be aware that they're carrying a weight. It doesn't matter, they are carrying a weight with them. Because they carry this weight, their primary tendency is to guard the baggage they carry with them. Because all worldly people carry baggage with them. It doesn't have to be baggage from a promiscuous sexual past. It can also be baggage from a painful background or abusive parents, or maybe it's baggage of denial. Maybe they grew up in a wonderful home, they had loving parents, and because of this, they have difficulty understanding that evil exists. So now they are in denial of evil. This is also a baggage. All worldly people, because they have an agenda, they carry baggage with them. And their primary tendency is to guard that baggage. Look at it like this. You walk outside, you have your wallet. You carry your wallet with you because you need to make payments. You need to pay cash, or you have a bank card in it. What if someone comes by to snatch your wallet away? You fight, you resist. You don't want someone to rob you. And that's how it is with worldly people. They perceive their agenda as their security and as who they are. Anytime anyone comes by and challenges their agenda, they feel threatened. Even when it's obvious that their agenda is inconsistent, that it's not true, that it's, how would I say, unpractical, and therefore the agenda should be dropped. Even when that's all obvious, because they're clinging onto that agenda, because that agenda is all they've ever invested in, you coming along to challenge the agenda, they will feel as if you're robbing them. For them, it's the same as someone coming to them to take their wallet. Whether someone just grabs their wallet, or whether someone comes with a gun to their face saying, "Give me your wallet." It's the same experience for the unbeliever when you come and challenge their agenda. That is how people are unless they are renewed in their mind. They can be kind people. They can be decent people. That doesn't matter. They are stuck. They have an agenda. And because they have an agenda, they carry baggage with them. They carry a weight. And this weight will weigh you down eventually. So you can have contact with those that aren't renewed in their mind. You have no choice. You're in the world. So you are involved with them. But don't be yoked with them. Because when you're yoked with them, their weight will weigh you down. An agenda can also be that they think that you need to work hard to have a good life. Even though reality shows them that working hard will tire you, it will ruin your quality of life. So reality shows them that there's more behind the scenes. There are spiritual things behind the scenes. But they have no interest in acknowledging this, because then they need to reframe everything they've been throughout their lives. They need to reframe every relationship they ever had. Now they need to process things, and that can be quite painful, and they can experience this as difficult. So they avoid this. So now they're clinging on to the idea that you need to work hard to have a good life. What happens when they encounter someone who doesn't work hard? They may not even be employed, yet they have a prosperous life. What's going to happen to their agenda? their agenda is shattered. So they're going to feel threatened by such an individual. And often they will turn on such individual because they will associate the threat that they're feeling, the danger they're feeling, they will associate it with the one who doesn't match their agenda. And that's how you get people that turn on you, they're going to hate on you, and you don't even know who those people are. They do it to guard their agenda. Because all the relationships they have in their life are based on that agenda. You can have a guy, for example, who never considers his own feelings, what I mean is he never considers whether his feelings are correct. He never considers whether his opinions or the way he thinks about stuff is correct. He just blurs things out. When he sees someone and the individual doesn't match his expectations, he feels annoyance, he feels upset, and he expresses this. He says, I don't like you. He just says things as he feels them and as he thinks. The moment someone tells them, listen, dude, what you're doing is projecting your shortcomings onto others. You just don't want to be challenged. The moment someone challenges his agenda, two things can happen. Either he admits it and he begins to process things and he faces himself, or he becomes more and more narcissistic and he'll eventually become a narcissist in which he attacks everyone that challenges his agenda. It's one to two. And agendas also imply how they view sexual relationships, financial relationships, how they view money, how they view wealth, how they view the quality and value of life. All of those things are expectations they are clinging onto. Realize that worldly people have their agenda all the time. So when you're dealing with these people, realize you're dealing with people with agendas. And because they have an agenda, they're short-sighted. They don't see the bigger picture. Because they don't see the bigger picture, they all have a breaking point. They all have a point where they're fed up and they're not interested anymore. Why? Because they're short-sighted. You may find a worldly individual who can see the bigger picture, but that's very rare. And you're not dealing with the rare exemptions in daily life. You're dealing with the general. That's why you need to know that in general, worldly people, they don't want to look at the bigger picture because the bigger picture automatically destroys their agendas. And worldly people are nothing without their agendas. They define themselves and others based on their agendas. Worldly people's primary concern is to protect their agenda. That's why they want to have validation from others. That's why they want narcissistic supply. Because their self-worth, which they actually don't have, is based on that agenda. That's why, in the world, they want to have differences. That's why you have poverty. Because if everyone is at ease financially, then nobody has narcissistic relief. But because there is poverty, you have people that feel at ease because at least they're not like those people sleeping in the streets. And this narcissistic supply keeps that agenda of theirs alive because that agenda is a fiction. It's a fiction that they collectively keep going. That's what society is. Society is a fear construct to keep the agendas of worldly people going. That is what it is. So, understand that worldly people, unless they submit to Christ, by doing that, they're not worldly anymore. So, unless they submit to Christ and they are renewed in their minds, you will have to find a way to deal in a constructive manner with their toxicity. Because all worldly people are toxic. They may not be dangerous directly, but they are toxic. They will weigh you down. Someone that's toxic is not automatically dangerous. Okay? But because they're toxic, they will weigh you down and they will enable danger. And then you have people who are openly dangerous, just dangerous. Wherever they go, harm happens. Am I saying that toxic people are better than dangerous people? No, because they're both in darkness. The toxic one needs deliverance. The dangerous one is the one you need to be delivered from. But even if someone is not directly dangerous, when they are toxic, they are enablers somewhere. Realize what you are dealing with. Never expect that all worldly people are dangerous, because that's paranoia. But never expect all worldly people to be just toxic, because then you will be deceiving yourself and you will put yourself in harm's way. And if you encounter some exceptions of worldly people, stop trying to find those exceptions, because they are rare. What you should do is renew your mind and walk by faith. And by doing that, you deal with others, whether believers or unbelievers, in a constructive and practical manner. That is how you ought to be: flexible, constructive, and practical. Or as Christ said, wise as a serpent. So know what you are dealing with. All worldly people have an agenda. Some are aware that they have an agenda, and they're open about it. Others, or I said the majority of them, especially those that are very direct with what they feel and think, aren't even aware they have an agenda. They are projecting that agenda onto others, and that's how you find out what their agenda is, by what they're projecting. If you want to know what someone's agenda is, look at what they're projecting onto others. And again, projection can be both positive, that's healthy, as well as toxic, that's unhealthy. Not all projection is negative. Someone can project good things, and there's nothing wrong with projecting good and healthy things, as long as there is safety in which those projections will work out. For example, you can project good intentions onto others, but unless those people are willing to indeed develop good intentions, you'll be deceiving yourself. Because if you have a narcissist there who's only into seeking relief at everyone's expense, it doesn't matter how many good things you project onto that individual. That individual is not receptive to good things. He just wants to dump negativity to be at ease. And now you have a narcissist who's projecting negativity onto others. Why is he doing that? To escape, have to face himself. But if you have someone there who is not aware that someone's projecting negativity onto them, they can be harmed by the negative projection. So projection is a natural thing human beings do, whether for good or for bad. So if you want to know someone's agenda, look at what they're projecting. A believer will project in line with Christ. So then you know they're doing God's will. And because they're doing God's will, they have no agenda of their own. When someone is not renewed in their mind, they always have an agenda. Just look what they're projecting, whether good or bad. And always anticipate people's agendas. If you know someone has an agenda, then see what their agenda is and outsmart them. If they have a negative, bitter agenda, then you know that you need to lower contact. If they have an agenda in which they are denying negativity, then you know that with these people you can't hang out too long, because when it comes down to it, they don't want to see things. If someone has a nihilistic agenda, then you know that with this individual you can't discuss deep things because, well, they're nihilistic. So see people's agenda. The earlier you see someone's agenda, the far better off you are. That's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.